Hey guys, today we're going to get back into the world of macro food photography. How can we bring out those gorgeous textures? How can we get those little sparkling highlights on that juicy orange? Well, we're going to dive deeper into this and we're going to shine a little light on macro food photography, focusing on lighting. Now we're going to get deep into the world of lighting for macro food photography. Now stick around to the end. I got a couple of really good bonus tips for you that'll really help up your game and create better images for macro food photography. So lighting. Our light source can be varied to what you have available. Natural light, LED constant lighting, studio strobes. How about off-camera flash, something like this? This is just a Nikon flash. We can use it. There's all different kinds of light sources available to you. And as you know, light is the key to photography. So we want to find a light source that will work for us. Once we find that light source, we need to find a way to modify it, because you might want hard light, you might want soft light. So we need to modify the light accordingly. Like I showed you this flash, let me grab that again, and you can see on the end how it's got this little plastic dome, which is a light diffuser, which will help spread the light out a little more evenly. Now Nikon even has a little piece that goes in, and then I can put the dome on top again and diffuse it even more. If that's not enough, I could take something like a piece of paper, shoot my strobe through it, and now my light source has gone from this big to this big. So I get a softer light. Now, if your window light, window shears, doesn't have to be photographic quality. You could go out and buy something like this, but in larger scale for a window light. This is the diffuser panel from the inside of a softbox. But you can get this in larger sizes. You can use it for your constant LED lights. I could put this in front. This is quite large. I could put a bigger piece in front of a window. I can add this into a softbox to create an even softer lighting look to it. So I'm diffusing the light out to get that soft look if I don't want hard lighting, because sometimes you actually do want some hard lighting to create some really cool and dramatic images. Now we've got the light the way we want it to look. We need to be able to control its direction and how it acts. So with studio strobes, you've got softboxes, octaboxes, umbrellas, beauty dishes, just a reflector that comes with it. You've got a lot of options. With a window, you don't have as many options, but you can use reflectors, foam core, a black foam core to give negative fill. You can pull the curtains across, so you can narrow it down to a smaller strip box effect, just like a studio strobe. Same with your constant lighting. You can do the same. You can bounce light around. Now, talking about bouncing light around, how about something like this? Because we're only talking macro food photography, we need something small. This is made by Cameron. They're just little reflectors. Look at this. You get a set of 2, and they are double-sided in different colors. And you can see, let me catch them right back at you there. There you go. So these are small. Food and macro we're doing is small. So these become very handy. I'm not dealing with a great big piece of foam core or a great big soft box. I can narrow the light down and bounce it where I need it to go by using one of these little reflectors. Also, let me get this out of the way there. Also, how many lights you're going to use? 1 light, 2 light, 3 light, 4 light, 5? Endless. It's up to you how many lights you use and where you put them to get the quality of the image that you want. Now, if you're only using 1 light and you're getting a bit of shadowing on one side, and I've shown this lots of times in other videos, you can use a piece of white foam core to bounce a little light back in. You can use one of these little reflectors that I show to bounce some light back in. You're trying to get a little light out of the area, use a piece of black foam core, works as a negative fill. I've shown that tons of times in the past. So we can bounce light. So we can use our light modifiers like the strip boxes and soft boxes, but then we can bounce some other light into some other areas or subtract light for some other areas by blocking light. It's all about controlling the light, softening it, hardening it, directing it to where we want it to go and how we want it to go. So the next thing in with light is direction. Where is the light coming from? As you can see, I'm fairly front lit right now, but I find for food photography, especially in the macro world, side lighting works the best, because the light is coming across the food and it's bringing out all the little textures and stuff. I mean, look at this picture of the frosting that I did, and look at the highlights. Look at the texture. Look at the way the shadow is on the backside of each of one of those little swirls. and it just helps make that image more three-dimensional. I mean, here's the little setup I did, and it was just simply a large softbox up close to it to create the softest light I could, and I've got my camera mounted so I'm actually flat parallel down to it to capture the image. It's a very simple setup, and it's side lit. So I'm going to show you how the direction of light has an impact on your image. So I'm simply using a piece of tomato, and I'm going to rotate a light around that tomato and see the changes. I mean, look at this here. You can see how the texture, how the highlights all start changing as that light starts revolving around that piece of tomato. So when you're going to do your image, start moving your light around. Find out where the light is in the best position to bring out those highlights, to bring out the texture, to bring out the detail that you want. Now, you may also have to rotate your food around because there might be a bit too much of a dip in one area. So you might have to change your light a bit, and you might have to rotate your food a bit to be able to get the best look of lighting on your subject. But you can see how rotating that light around that little piece of tomato, how it brings out the detail and the highlights within it. And just a word of caution at this point in time, be aware that you're not casting a shadow into the scene. Just as you saw as I was moving the light around that tomato there was a bit of shadowing happening. Some of it was because of me and where the light was, I was blocking part of the light. So be aware of that. Now you can see as we've been talking about texture. I mean, look at this image here. This is some granola with some almond slices in it. I mean, look at that beautiful texture from that granola. It's kind of rough and coarse compared to the almond slices, which are smooth. So that contrast within that image, I think, plays really well. And having it side lit, here's the little setup that I did. It's just simply the large softbox again, side lighting, and I'm shooting straight down again on that little overhead rig that I got going on. And it gives me that image. And the contrast between the rough texture and the smooth texture, I think, works extremely well. Now we're going to look at some hard lighting, and we're going to look at some soft lighting. It's up to you what you want. Hard lighting is not necessarily a bad thing, and you can create a very dramatic image with it. First off though, let's look at the soft lighting. Here's a little setup I've got going on. I got a large softbox, side lighting, and that's a leaf from a Savoy cabbage. I just love that stuff. Tastes good, but it also has a really cool texture to the leafing, which works beautiful for this and creates a really neat abstract background. Look at this image here. With that soft side lighting on there, I get all the lumpy bump parts stand right out, almost three-dimensional, with a soft shadow on the backside of it, and I got the smoother part down near the bottom by the veins. But I think that looks really cool with that kind of lighting. Now, what happens when I go to a hard lighting? Okay, here's the setup I did. Studio strobe with a 30-degree grid on it. So I've got the light quite focused. It's above the subject, so I'm only getting a bit of light skimming across the surface of the leaf. Now, look at the difference with this one. Look at that image. Look at how dramatic that is. Look at the deep, dark shadows, the brighter highlights. It is quite dramatic compared to the soft lighting. So that's why I say it depends which one you want. Look at these side by side now. Look at the difference between the two. And basically, we only really changed the quality of the light in diffusion from a soft light to a hard light. I didn't change direction or anything else. And look at the difference between the two. Which do you prefer? Soft light, hard light? It's all up to you. Now, I did say stick around to the end because I've got a couple of tips for you. Those tips are, when you're going to take your picture, especially if you saw the rig that I have with the boom arm over the top, well, it's very hard to try and take a picture by leaning over the table. You've got a few ways of doing it. Some cameras have remote releases, either by an app or a separate remote. That's great to use because you're not touching anything, you're not shaking anything, you're not changing the plane. You can use a self-timer if you don't have that available to you. So there's different ways of releasing your camera to get the image without touching your camera, so you're not changing anything and you're not messing up your focus point. Because sometimes your focus is very shallow and you don't want to change it and then have an out of focus image. Now, a nice little trick there to getting better focus, instead of looking through the little viewfinder piece, put on live view. If your camera has the ability, use live view, then do your focus and set your focus, because now you've got a bigger screen to look at and you can make sure all the parts you want are in focus. Then once you got that set, remote release it however you can, boom. So those 2 points will really help up your game and decrease your frustration level. So frustration level down, image quality goes up. Because you're not going to get those out of focus shots. You're not going to have the camera shake issues. That's all going to be resolved. All right, That's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed the world of macro food photography and how we shone a little light on the subject. But if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that bell notification so you're aware when I post new videos like this. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. So, until the next time.